Second thing I would have you know, this woman comes to the presence of God boldly. She burst right in, right onto the patio where they were eating. She comes in on her knees at the presence of Jesus, and the text says she begged. She begged him to come and deliver her daughter from the evil spirit. Jesus was not wanting to see anyone. He went to this home as a retreat to get away, but she would not be turned away. And then I want you to notice Jesus' comment to her. He says to her, "First, let the children eat all they want," he told her. "For it is not right to take the children's bread and toss it to their dogs." That was actually a racial slur, because the Jews would refer to the Gentiles as dogs. Gentile dogs. Was Jesus being crude? Was Jesus being inappropriate? Or was Jesus testing this woman? I would make another point to you. The word that is translated dog is the word for a little dog, a puppy. She comes to him begging for his help, and his response is what every Jew and most Gentiles that lived around them understood about the Jews. The Jews considered themselves the only ones at the table. Now, I heard this joke about going to heaven. And this guy went to heaven, and St. Peter took him around, and he showed him where all the Episcopalians were, and showed him where the Presbyterians were, and showed him where the Methodists were, and showed him where the Pentecostal were. And then he came to a building, he said, "Shh, let's be real quiet as we go by here." And as they went by, the guy says, "Why are we being so quiet?" And St. Peter said, "Well, that's the Baptist, and they think they're the only ones here." The Jews thought they were the only ones at the table. The table being the blessings of God. It was exclusively theirs. It was their table. And that's the parable that Jesus is saying here. The little children, it's not right to take their food from them. The ones who have right ought to be at the table, and throw it to the dogs. He was putting her in a place, and the Jews in a place that popular culture told them this is how it is supposed to be. This was a good place for her to get indignant. This was a good place for her to stand up, put her hands on her hips, and give him a piece of her mind. This is a good place for the political correct police to come in and say, "You can't say that. You can't infer things like that. You can't talk like that." But notice the woman's response. It's absolutely brilliant. "Yes, Lord," she replied. You might want to circle the word Lord there, because this is the first time in the Gospel of Mark that anybody called Jesus Lord. The first time. "Yes, Lord," she said, "but even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." She wasn't going to argue the point of whose right the table was, who had a place at the table and who didn't. She wasn't going to get into that. She just knew that there was more than enough on God's table, even for her and her daughter. She knew there was more than enough. And it didn't matter whether she was at the table or under the table. She wanted what Jesus had to give to anyone